Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Prostrations to Bhagavan who shines as the Self in all of us. We begin today's Satsang with a prayer by Srimati Sapna Ganesh, followed by Muktaka trayam by Sri Nandakumar sir.
दक्षिणामूर्तिसारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमां रमणाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् शुक्लाम्बरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये आङ्गिकं भुवनं यस्य वाचिकं सर्ववाङ्मयम् आहार्यं चन्द्रतारादि तं नमः सात्विकं शिवम् ॐ नमो भगवते श्रीरमणाय. Namo Ramana to everyone.
Ekam aksharam Nirantaram Bhasati Swayam Likyate Hridayatuharamati Kevalam Brahmanatri Yaham Maham Satsang Atmarupena Bhati Hridi Vishamanasasvam Chivata Majjata Avana Chalanurudha Atmanishto Bhavatam Deham Brahmayavat Jadatmakam Aham Buddhirnatasyasya Puri Naham Tattva Bhavashukti Shalai Siddha Siddha Kuhandayata Upavarahija Drishta Manishta Nana Spurtitaya Arunachala Shiva Vidhati
Namo Ramana. We will now have the chanting of Upadesa Saram verses 1 to 10 by Uma and Ashwini Balaji.
Namo Ramana. कर्तुराज्ञया प्राप्यते फलं कर्म किं परं कर्म तज्जडं कृतिमहो ददौ पतनकारणं फलमशाश्वतं गतिनिरोधकम् ईश्वरार्पितं नेच्छया कृतं चित्तशोधकं मुक्तिसाधकं कायवाग्मना कार्यमुत्तमं पूजनं जप चिन्तनं क्रमात् जगत ईषधी युक्तसेवनम् अष्टमूर्तिभृग् देवपूजनम् उत्तमस्तवादुच्चमन्दत चित्तजं जप ध्यानमुत्तमम् आज्यधारया स्रोतसा समम् सरलचिन्तनं विरलतः परं वेदभावनात् सोऽहमित्यसौ भावनाभिदा पावनी मत भावशून्यसद् भावसुस्थिति भावनाबलात् भक्तिरुत्तमा हृत्स्थले मना स्वस्थता क्रिया भक्तियोगबोधाश्च निश्चितम्. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have the presentations of Ramananjali music by Srimati Radha, followed by Pratibha, and this will also be followed by Savitri, Jaisriram, and Srimati Jaisri.
Namo Ramana to everyone. Today I will be presenting a song written by Sri Sadhuvam Swami, and the music is by Sri L. Krishna. This is a favorite song to all the Ramana devotees. அண்ணாமலை தனிலே அமர்ந்திருக்கும் அரசே, அண்ணாமலை தனிலே அமர்ந்திருக்கும் அரசே, ஆனந்தமான வாழ்வை அடியேனுக்கு அருள் செய்வாய், ஆனந்தமான வாழ்வை அடியேனுக்கு அருள் செய்வாய், அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா. எங்கும் நிறைந்திருந்தே ஏகமாயானவரே, எங்கும் நிறைந்திருந்தே ஏகமாயானவரே, ஏகம் நிறைந்த என்னை இன்பம் அடைய செய்வாய், ஏகம் நிறைந்த என்னை இன்பம் அடைய செய்வாய், அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா. சொல்லி விளக்க உன்னை சொற்களுண்டோ உலகில், சொல்லி விளக்க உன்னை சொற்களுண்டோ உலகில், ஜோதியுள் ஜோகியாக ஜொலிக்கும் சுயஞ்சுடரே, ஜோதியுள் ஜோதியாக ஜொலிக்கும் சுயஞ்சுடரே, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, அருள் செய்வாய் ரமண தேவா, ரமண தேவா ரமண தேவா, Ramana Deva, 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 Ramana Deva.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. This composition is by Sri Ramnath Brahmachari and music set by L. Krishnan. Ramanan, Ramanan, Arule, Ramanan, 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 Arule, Ramanan, Arule, Uruvayamarum, Ramanan, Irule, Dumila, Padamindanane, Ramanan, Ramanan, Arule, Ramanan, 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 Arule, Ramanan, Ayyan Ramanan, Arul Tandadanar, பொய்யாம்பினை போனவகை அறியேன் உய்யும் வழியன் உளமுற்றதனால் மெய்யந்தனை வந்த விளங்கியதே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருளே ஒருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருணாபுரிவாள் அருள் வேதியனாம் கருணாமுகிலோன் கவலை களைவோன் மரணாதிய மயக்கம் மரத்தருளும் தருணாருண ஞானதயாபரனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் சிந்தாமணியாகிய சின்மயனே மந்தாக்கினி மைந்த மகாசயனே கந்தா கருணாலய தேசிகனே எந்தாபமகற்றி அருள் குஹனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருளே ஒருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் சரணாகதியாயடையும் தமியே மரணாதிமய கமரத்தருள்வாய் கருணாநிதியாகிய வேங்கடமா அருணாச்சலமாயமர் ஜோதியனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருளே ஒருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் அருளே உருவாயமரும் ரமணன் இருளேதுமிலா பதமீந்தனனே ரமணன் ரமணன் அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன் 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 அருளே ரமணன். நமோ ரமண.
அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಮನದಲ್ಲಿ ನಿನ್ನನು ನೆನೆವರ ಹಮ್ಮನು ಪರಿಹರಿಸುವೆ ನೀ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಒಲಿಸಿದ ನನ್ನನು ತೊರೆದರೆ ನಿನ್ನನು ತೆಗಳದೆ ಲೋಕ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಲೋಕವ ಬೆಳಗುವ ರವಿಯೇ ನನ್ನೆದೆ ಕಮಲವ ಅರಳಿಸುವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ವಸನ ಸರಿಸಿ ದಿಗಂಬರನಾಗಿಸಿ ಕೃಪೆಯನ್ನು ಬೋಧಿಸೋ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಪ್ರೀತಿಯಲೆನ್ನನು ಆರಂಗಿಸದಿರೆ ಕಳೆದಂತೆಯನ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಗಾಳಿಯಲೆಯುವ ದೋಣಿಯನ್ನಿಸದೆ ಕಾಯೋ ಪ್ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ನಾಸಿಕಹೀನಗೆ ತೋರುವ ಕನ್ನಡಿಯಾಗದೆ ಪಾಲಿಸು ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ನಿನ್ನ ಕರೆಗೆ ಬಂದೆನು ಸಲಹುವ ಹೊಣೆಯಿಲ್ಲದೆ ದೊರೆ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ನನ್ನಂತಹ ಅಸಹಾಯಕ ದೀನರ ಮನ್ನಿಸು ಸಂತದ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಬಡ ನುಡಿಗಳ ನೀ ಸಹಿಸಿ ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸು ಸಹನಾಚಲ ನೀ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಈ ಶ್ರೀಮಾಲಯ ತೊಡಿಸುವೆ ನಿಶ್ಚಲ ಈ ಶ್ರೀಮಾಲಯ ತೊಡಿಸುವೆ ನಿಶ್ಚಲ ಭಕ್ತಿಯ ನೀಗೈ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ ಶಿವ ಅರುಣಾಚಲ. ಓಂ ನಮೋ ಭಗವತೆ ಶ್ರೀರಾಮಾಯ.
Namo Ramana. We'll now have sharing and reading of Book of the Western Seekers by Sri Nandakumarji.
Namo Ramana. In this the book reading segment of our Satsang, we have been reading from the accounts of Western Seekers. The book is entitled Fresh Discoveries, Western Seekers on Sri Ramananjali. The compilation is by our founder president, Sri A.R. Natarajanji. We have been going through the account of Suzanne, and the writing is by her daughter, Monica Bose. The article is entitled The Hill of Fire. We had briefly seen the journey she makes and how she describes the arid places, the climate and the vegetation that she finds on the way to Tiruvannamalai, and the sensitivity that the author has about how in the olden days the stoneworks near dolmens at that got the sculptures engraved into the stones itself, which indicated that God did not want to show himself as separate from nature. And it is in the later works that the separate sculpture started. We find her reading into complex symbology, and she comes into the ashram, and we ended the last reading by this paragraph. Once during the morning, the Maharishi turned and looked directly at Suzanne. Of course, the account is by her daughter. Once during the morning, the Maharishi turned and looked directly at Suzanne. She would write to us about his wonderful ways, his brilliant eyes shining like stars. She was sure that she had found her master. We had stopped there and we continue from there. Am I audible? Okay. At 11 o'clock, the Maharishi and the devotees rose and left the hall, for it was time for the main meal of the day. Someone from the ashram invited Suzanne and the two ladies with her to join the others. The meal was served in the communal dining hall, where rows of freshly washed plantain leaves had been laid out on the spotlessly clean stone floor. The Maharishi took his place among the devotees. The Brahmins sat on one side of him and the non-Brahmins on the other, thus respecting religious customs. The Maharishi, though, did not wear the Brahmin thread, and she remembered that on arriving in Tiruvannamalai, he had thrown away the thread worn by the hereditary sacerdotal caste. Sacerdotal means as priestly. He had thrown away the thread worn by the hereditary priestly caste that indicated superiority over the others. They were served rice, vegetables, pepper water, and milk curds. The Maharishi ate very frugally. He asked Suzanne whether the food was too pungent for them. Pungent, of course, means strong taste or smell. Bhagavan asked Suzanne whether the food was having too strong a taste or smell for them. These words of solicitude were the first words he spoke to her. In the hall, she then joined the devotees who had come to spend the afternoon with the Maharishi. She did not see some of those who had been present in the morning, but several newcomers were there. She was surprised to hear that devotees might come into the hall as early as 4 o'clock in the morning, though 7 o'clock was the time most morning visitors gathered. They spent a few hours with him, but he was accessible to them all day. As in the morning, the mood was rather informal. To these pupils aspiring to attain the highest grades of knowledge, the Maharishi apparently did not give any discourses. He replied to the questions when they were put to him, usually very succinctly, that is, briefly and appropriately, usually very succinctly, as if to let the one word or the few words he said make their way directly into the understanding of the questioner. I'll read that again. How Suzanne sees the situation is that The Maharshi replied to the questions when they were put to him, usually very succinctly, as if to let the one word or the few words he said make their way directly into the understanding of the questioner. On the other hand, when a young man struggled to grasp what the self was, the Maharishi, with great patience, guided him through his reasoning until at last he got some glimmering of what the Maharishi meant. That means there is no particular way in which we could say that he is fixed in this way. As was the requirement of the sincere seeker, Bhagavan would reply. Of course, the answer to the nature of the self is only to be found on the intuitive level. But the breakthrough of intuition can be hampered by faulty reasoning. How beautifully she has coined this sentence. Of course, the answer to the nature of the self is only to be found at the intuitive level. It has to be found only in the intuition, that which is within us. But what happens is that the breakthrough of intuition can be hampered by faulty reasoning. So far as the intellect is struggling with faulty reasoning, the intuition can be hampered. That is where the Upadesam comes in, where the intellect is refined to understand and agree and be obedient to what removes the hampering of the intuition within. Of course, the answer to the nature of the self is only to be found at the on the intuitive level. But the breakthrough of intuition can be hampered by faulty reasoning. Apart from these exceptions to silence, there were long, quiet moments when the Maharishi said and did nothing, but which were more effective in conveying transcendent truth than any lecture or sermon would have been. The afternoon ended with a 20-minute break. The Maharishi and the devotees gathered in the hall again at 5 o'clock for the evening session. Suzanne found that the atmosphere now was quite different, much more solemn and charged with more energy than earlier on in the day. First, there was the recitation of the Vedas by a group of young Brahmins, and their syllables vibrated in the hall. The Maharishi's appearance underwent a remarkable change. His expression became austere, very strict. His gaze turned inwards. His face appeared translucent, as if lit by inner illumination, whilst the constant slight trembling of his body, which Suzanne had noticed earlier, had now completely stopped. Yet, even in this state, it was evident that the Maharishi was not oblivious of his surroundings and that he had an awareness of both the inner and outer reality. Suzanne was to write about her impression of the Maharishi in these words. He is an adept of the highest order, a king of yogis. The splendor of his realization radiates like a sun. Robed in ether, his yogic powers are unique, subtle, and rare. He lifts you far above the world. I'll read that again. Suzanne was to write about her impression of the Maharishi in these words. He is an adept of the highest order, a king of yogis. The splendor of his realization radiates like a sun. Robed in ether, his yogic powers are unique, subtle, and rare. He lifts you far above the world. After the Vedas, the devotees sang together a hymn to Arunachala. Then they sat in deep silence, capturing the force emanating from their master, a force so strong as to be almost tangible. To her surprise, she now saw all the women rise, and after prostrating to the Maharishi, file out of the hall. She did not go with them. One of the men came and explained to her that the ashram management had made the rule that women must leave the ashram before 6:30 p.m. so that they could safely return home before dark. She protested that she was not afraid of the dark and asked to be allowed to stay as long as the men. The Sarvadhikari, alerted that there was some trouble in the hall, arrived and told her himself that the ashram rules must be respected. The Maharishi did not intervene at any time during this incident. Very upset, Suzanne left the hall. She found her two friends from Adayar waiting for her outside. They looked dejected because they had just found out that there was no guest house for women at the ashram and that they would have to find some accommodation in the town. They tried to persuade her to go with them. But since she refused, they left without her. Suzanne declared to the small group of ashramites who were trying to pacify her that since she could not stay at the ashram, she would go and spend the night on the hill. She climbed some way up the hill and without difficulty found a cave in which to shelter. She entered its dark interior in spite of her bravado and a little afraid of finding herself confronted by some animal. I'll read that again. She entered its dark interior in spite of her bravado and was a little afraid of finding herself confronted by some wild animal. But she was alone. She had meant to spend the night in meditation, but it was impossible for her to meditate. So great was her feeling of indignation at what had happened. Meeting a true master had been the event she had longed for, and she had so much hope to receive some indication from him that he had accepted her as his disciple. Instead, at what had been the most significant moment of the day for her, she had been made to leave his presence because she was a woman, which in this society obviously meant someone weak and inferior. The incident aroused in her an old impulse to revolt against exclusion because of arbitrarily determined inferiority, a reaction which went back to her student days when more than once she had been indignant at the unfair discrimination against women. In fact, the feeling went still further back to her early childhood when she had first understood that her parents valued her less than her brother and that whatever she might do, she would never be able to take his place in their pride and affection. It was strange that on the very first day with Maharishi, her oldest pain and anger should have risen to the surface. Her anger drove all other thoughts from her mind. It was then that she had a vision of Arunachala as a hill of fire. Her anger drove all other thoughts from her mind. It was then that she had a vision of Arunachala as a hill of fire. In its many caves, siddhas, or realized beings, in their pure and invulnerable bodies, sat or moved unharmed in the plains. In her vision, she was taken into the hill and passed through its fire, but felt no fear, no pain. And she saw many worlds existing within the hill in a series of extraordinary revelations. I will read that paragraph again. Her anger against these indignities that have been put upon women, her anger drove all other thoughts from her mind. And it was then that she had a vision of Arunachala as a hill of fire. In its many caves, Siddhas or realized beings in their pure and invulnerable bodies sat or moved unharmed in the flames. In her vision, she was taken into the hill and passed through its fire and felt no fear, no pain. And she saw many worlds existing within the hill in a series of extraordinary revelations. While Suzanne was on the hill that night, the Maharshi, knowing that there were wild animals such as cheetahs, leopards, and jackals on the slopes, asked Mr. Cohen, a former theosophist who had known her at Adayar, to go and persuade her to come down. When Mr. Cohen and his party found her, she was calm, being still under the influence of her wondrous vision. Without further protest, she agreed to spend the rest of the night in a hotel in the town. The next day, she came to ashram. When somebody asked to take a photograph of Maharshi with the foreign devotees at the ashram, he agreed, although he did not always agree to be photographed. Seeing that Susan hung back a little diffidently, he made a sign to her that was to join them. In this photograph, the devotees are grouped before Arunachala as if forming a hill with the Maharshi at the center. This is the last photograph in which Suzanne appears clad in the Buddhist robe, for she stopped wearing it shortly afterwards. In Bangalore and in Buddhist monasteries in the north, where she had been accepted unquestioningly as a Buddhist nun, she did not feel self-conscious when wearing the habit. Here, in the predominantly Hindu milieu, her Buddhist robe was not understood, and as a result, she felt self-conscious and on the defensive. The Maharshi did not ask her to stop wearing it. That was not his way. There were never any dictates from him. His teachings did not lay down rules of conduct. They provided guidance as to how to achieve selflessness, which was the basis of realization. She had read some of his teachings before coming to Tiruvannamalai and had grasped enough to know that in the quest which required the abandonment of all thought of the self, there was no place for self-consciousness or even for self-defense. I'll read the paragraph about the hill of fire and then conclude. It was strange that on her very first day with the Maharshi, her oldest pain and anger should have risen to the surface. Her anger drove all other thoughts from her mind. It was then that she had a vision of Arunachala as a hill of fire. In its many caves, Siddhas or realized beings in their pure and invulnerable bodies sat or moved unharmed in the flames. In her vision, she was taken into the hill and passed through its fire, but felt no fear, no pain. And she saw many worlds existing within the hill in a series of extraordinary revelations. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana.
Namo Ramana. Bhagavan gives us the direct path, whatever path we may be following, whatever problems we may have. The only solution which Bhagavan gives us is to inquire within the self and find what this self is. Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi's self-enquiry path will be conducted by Dileep Simha now. Self-enquiry session by Sri Dileep Simha.
Namo Ramana. Hridaya kuhara madhye kevalam brahmamatram yahamaham sakshat atmarupena bhati. Hridi vishamanasa svam Chinvata majjatava pavana chalanarodha atmanishto bhavatvam. We will commence today's Atma Vichara by listening to Bhagavan's Upadesha. As usual, I will be reading from Guru Vachaka Kovai, and after this, experience of the truth. And the topic blessed by Bhagavan is omniscience. Verse number 926. Because you do not know any being other than yourself, Atmasvarupa, only the pure attribute-free consciousness that shines as fullness without any limitation is in truth the omniscience that excels unequaled. It is not the other knowledge that comprises simultaneously and completely knowing events in the three times, past, present, and future, and the three worlds. I repeat, because you do not know any being other than yourself, Atmasvarupa, only the pure attribute-free consciousness that shines as fullness without any limitation is in truth the omniscience that excels unequaled. It is not the other knowledge that comprises simultaneously and completely knowing events in the three times, that is past, present, and future, and the three worlds. Here, Bhagavan, as truly conveyed by Susan, is giving us the breakthrough to our intuitions by clearing the false reasons that we hold on to. In this verse, we generally believe omniscience is knowing all the things which has happened in the past, which is happening right now in the present, and that is going to happen in the future, and the other worlds that we imagine it to be. This is the false reasoning that we hold on to. This is what we assume omniscience is. But Bhagavan, as Susan had made it clear, he is giving us the breakthrough so that our intuition can identify the true self, that which is within us, which is always shining. Here, he is pointing us our attention to that attribute-free consciousness. The reason he says it's attribute-free is because it doesn't make an iota of discrimination between the good, the bad, the waking, the dream, the sleep. It is simply shining equally in all this time. And it is only the attribute-free consciousness which is the true freedom that we are really looking for. Amidst all this creation, if at all we think it is, even in that state, even in the state of waking, no matter what are the events, that attribute-free consciousness is shredding its light without any iota of differences. And that is the reality of all of us. And that is the true omniscience, Bhagavan says. Because that consciousness, attribute-free consciousness, is the only thing through which we know the waking. It is the only thing through which we know the dream and the sleep. It is the one which is shining in all the three states. And it is the only reality which is there. Therefore, Bhagavan is saying, remaining as that attribute-free consciousness is the true omniscience. And in order for us to transcend all this reasoning, this which continuously happens, even when we try to look at the self, we try to look at it through some sort of a reasoning, some sort of an understanding of what self is, though we ourselves is the true self. Therefore, Bhagavan has given, whenever such reasoning rises in the form of thoughts, asks us to question to whom is this? And moment we question that, we recognize it is for me. And thereupon Bhagavan asks us to inquire, who am I? What do I really attribute this I to? Whom do I refer to as I within me? Or where from this thought I rises within me? When we inquire thus and go to the source of the I, that we see that we are that attribute free being consciousness alone. We are that unlimited ananda, which is equal at all times. And Bhagavan, by repeatedly bringing us back to our real nature, assures that the mind will gain enough strength in due course of this sadhana to remain at the source happily. So, with the immense grace of Bhagavan, for the next 10 minutes, no matter what kind of thoughts come and how many number of thoughts rises within us, we should diligently inquire to whom is this, recognize that it is for me, and thereupon inquire, who am I? And try to go to the source of the I, where from the I rises. And by doing so repeatedly, we we empower the mind to remain at the source and transcend all this reasoning, by which the intuition becomes very clear in recognizing what we really are. The immense grace of Bhagavan. For the next 10 minutes, let us do Atma Vichara. Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya. Namo Ramana.
Namo Ramana. We will now have sharing by Venkatesh Deshpande sir, who will be talking about Gita Sara.
Namo Bhagavate Ramana. Vasudeva Satam Devam Kansachanuramardanam Devaki Panandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum. Oh Shantakaram Bhujagashainam Padmanabham Suresham Vishwadharam Gaganasudrisham Meghavarnam Shubhangam Lakshmikantam Kamalanayanam Yogiradhyanagamyam Vande Vishnum Bhavabhaya Haram Sarvalokaikanaatham. Oh. We're doing manana on Bhagavad Gita Sara. We are on the verse 30th today. We'll be doing manana on that, which is from the chapter 6, verse number is 29. I request Sapna to kindly chant the verse, please.
Yes, sir. Atha Srimad Bhagavad Gita Saraha Sarvabhutastamatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha Sarvabhutastamatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Ikshate Yoga Yuktatma Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sapna. So this verse is very, very important in all our sadhana, because this tells us really how a realized soul is. The one whose mind is controlled and has an equal vision everywhere sees his own self as abiding in all beings and all beings in his self. I just repeat this. The one whose mind is controlled and has equal vision everywhere sees his own self as abiding in all beings and all beings in his self. It's the same Ekashloki which I chanted earlier. Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram. So, to be able to see the God within and the God in all, and then come to Ishavasyamidam Sarvam, is the highest that all of us are trying to get to. The one whose mind is subdued looks upon all beings, whether men, animals, birds, or worms, as the forms of Brahman alone. So this was true of Bhagavan. If you see Bhagavan's life, he would see everything, and the men, the animals, the birds, or anything that he saw was, even the scorpions that used to climb on his body, they used to look at his body as a wall. He used to climb up and climb down. So he would see all beings as equal, as the form of Brahman alone. As a result, he understands that there is nothing apart from his own self, and thus sees his own self as abiding in all the beings. As the entire world is an imaginary appearance or the creation of oneself, he sees all the beings as contained in his own self. This contains the whole truth. This is really the truth that each one of us aspire for knowing. even this is incidental. Therefore, it is in fact nothing but the Atman. The world is only a projection of the mind. The mind originates from the Atman. So Atman alone is the one being. This is what Ramana talks about. This is a very important thing. There is in fact nothing but the Atman. The world is only a projection of the mind. It's just an upadhi. It is just a veiling power on top of the self. The world is only a projection of the mind. The mind originates from the Atman. So Atman alone is the one being. This is what Bhagavan talks about. So let us dive in, look at other examples of how this, because sometimes we get too intellectual in our understanding. It becomes a little challenging to understand some of these concepts, because all this is knowing the self is really being the self, which we have to experience in meditation. So during the festival of Diwali in India, shops sell sugar candy molded in various forms, such as cars, aeroplanes, men, women, animals, balls, caps, etc. Children fight with their parents. When we were also children, we used to fight with their parents that they want a car, elephant, and so on. So what would the parents do? The parents would smile at their behavior. Why? Thinking that they are all made from the same sugar ingredient, and they are all equally sweet. See, the child does not see that. What does the child see? Sees the form, sees the elephant, sees the car, and says, I want the car, I want the elephant. But what does the parent know? The parent knows what is the ingredient of that sweet. The ingredient of the sweet is sugar, and each of them is equally sweet. So when the child will experience the elephant or will experience the car, when it consumes it, he'll find it equally sweet. Similarly, the ingredient of everything that exists is God Himself in the form of His various energies. Just as the sun, while remaining in one place, spreads its light everywhere, similarly the Supreme Lord, by His various energies, pervades and sustains everything that exists. The perfected yogis, in the light of realized knowledge, see everything in its connection with God. Shri Krishna has said that the perfected meditator sees his self in all beings. So we will use the illustration of the wave and the ocean as our example. So the wave and ocean is a perfect example, because all of us would have gone to the beach and seen the waves coming at the beach. So this is something that we can easily conceptualize, we can easily think about. And let us pay a little attention to this example. As an individual, we have a name and form. As an individual, all of us. So the person who's speaking, this body is speaking, is called Venkatesh. So in the same way, we can assume that each wave in the ocean has a name and form. It may be fictitious, but let us assume that each wave in the ocean has a name and form. If we go with this analogy, then we can consider ourselves as one of these waves. So we can consider, if though it's fictitious, but we can say that each wave has a name and form. It doesn't have a name, but it has a form. And if we go with that analogy, then we can consider ourselves as one of those waves. Meditation enables us to expand that notion of what a wave is. So first we begin to see that although there are different kinds of waves in the ocean, in essence, they are nothing but name and form. This is very important. So whenever we see when we see something else, if I see somebody else, I see a name and a form. So that's the first thing that helps. So we begin to see that although there are different kinds of waves in the ocean, in essence, they are nothing but name and forms. So in the world also we see names and forms. Some waves are big and some waves are small. But some last for a few seconds, some last for much longer than that. So we see on our own lives that some people live long, some people live short. Some people in some parts of the world are shorter than people in, say, in Sweden, people are all average height is 6'2" or much taller. So there are big waves and there are small waves. Now, I could be a small wave and you could be a big wave, but both of us are waves nevertheless. So this is the next aspect that we see ourselves in name and form, and then we see ourselves as a wave. And we may be a large wave or we may be a small wave, but we are all waves nevertheless. It is akin to realizing that we are all in the same family, nation, and so on. This stage of the perfected meditator's vision is indicated by the words, he sees his self in all beings. So he sees his self in all beings. There are two parts to this. The first part is he sees his self in all beings. As we further expand our vision, as we keep on doing meditation more and more, expand our vision, we begin to unravel the base of all these waves. We think, yes, all of us are waves, but what holds us together? We then realize that all waves, no matter how big or small, are contained in the ocean. So we have to realize that though the waves are there, some are big waves and some are small waves, some last for short periods of time, some last for long periods of time. No matter how big or small, they're contained in the ocean. The ocean is infinitely larger than all of the waves put together. So none of the waves can exist without the ocean. So without the ocean, the waves cannot exist. So first thing we realize, it has name and form. Then we realize it's a wave. Then we realize that it is supported by it can exist only if there's an ocean. If there's no ocean, there is no wave. The final stage of this vision is reached when we, as the wave, realize the ocean also is a name and form. So whenever we go to the beach, we'll see the ocean. It also has a name and form, even though it is infinitely larger than all of the waves put together. At its essence, it is nothing but water. This is very important. What is the essence of everything? It is nothing but water. I am the wave is water. Other waves are water. The ocean is also water. So we have to, in our using Viveka and Vairagya, we have to understand the essence of everything whenever we deal in the world. What is the essence of this? And when you go to the ocean, we will realize it is just basically water. This state is indicated by the words, he sees all beings in his own self. He sees all beings in his own self. And such a person is called Sarvatra Samadarshanaha. That means someone who sees same thing everywhere. One with equal vision. He sees everything everywhere. So another point made in the shloka is that the seeing does not happen just with one's eyes. So when I say, when you come and see something, you are actually seeing the ocean or seeing the waves. But another thing that is being said in the shloka is that seeing does not happen with his eyes. The visions come out of wisdom. So the vision means such vision is sometimes referred to as the third eye. This is the vision of a sthita prajna. The sthita prajna is always abiding in the self. When he is abiding in the self, he knows what's the essence of everything. There may be a wave, it may be a large wave, it may be a small wave, but they're all waves. The waves are supported by the ocean. And the ocean is also got name and form. What's the essence of the ocean is the water. So these are the aspects that is being spoken about in this. So Brahman is described as a state of unending bliss. All the happiness you experience now is finite and has an end. It is followed by sorrow. So any other type of happiness or pleasure has sorrow written on the other side. That is for sure. Like I'll tell you what happened yesterday. Day for yesterday, I had ordered myself a new mobile. My old mobile was giving trouble, and the Flipkart fellow. He said he is very close by. He's about 2 minutes away from my house, and it took 45 minutes to. I was waiting for him to deliver the mobile to my house. He delivered it 45 minutes later, and I was quite upset. I asked him, "You told me you're just." You told me your location, we're just 2 or 3 minutes away. Why did you take 45 minutes? So though I was getting a brand new mobile, at that transitory point, I was upset that why I didn't get the mobile earlier. So what I'm trying to say is all the happiness you experience, when I got the new mobile and you're listening to me through that mobile, now it has an end. It follows by sorrow. On realization, you gain infinite bliss, which never ends. That is where all of us need to be. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Jai Shri Krishna.
Namo Ramana.
Thank you.
Like how Venkatesh said, there are many forms, but the sugar is the same. Likewise, there are many forms of gods in our Indian tradition, but all gods tell us the same thing, that the self is the only thing which is there. We have Kalarani Rangaswamy, Dr. Kalarani Rangaswamy, talking about Shiva's Upadesha to Devi in Devikalotra Padalam. Devikalotram Jnana Vichara Padalam.
Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya Arunachalamana Agame Nepava Rupai Arunachala. Namo Ramana to all. With the abundance grace of Bhagavan, we are meditating on Devi Kalotra Jnana Vichara Padalam given to us by Bhagavan in Tamil. And in the last satsang we learned that practice what is said in Devi Kalotra without any fear, any doubt, with complete faith in it, without any confusion. And of course, sadhana must be done with full happiness. In the next verse, Bhagavan says, Mamada Indri Karunai Manni. Mamade Indri Karunai Manni. Ahankara, the I thought, is the first obstacle attaining mukti. Next to that is Mamakara. It is mine. I don't want to part anything with anyone. I have crores and crores of rupees, but I don't want to part with it, even a bit of it, to anyone else. My family, I cannot allow any wrong happening to them physically and mentally. Likewise, my area, my city, my state, my country. When a thief enters our house, how will we react? Oh God, he has come to take away all my possessions. My jewel, my cash, everything has gone. I feel so bad. But what do jnanis do in this situation? Bhagavan is the best example. When Bhagavan was in the ashram with some devotees, one day in the midnight, some thieves started knocking the door very hardly. Bhagwan said, I will open the door for you. Don't break the door. And he opened it for them. When they entered and found nothing to steal in the ashram, they got annoyed and beat the devotees there. Bhagwan also got beatings. When devotees asked Bhagwan, give us permission to beat them back so that they will learn a lesson. Bhagwan said, it is their profession. We are all sadhus. We have to just watch what they are doing. And when asked by policemen, Bhagwan, who attacked you? Can you recognize them? Bhagwan smilingly said, whom I did bet in the last Janma, they must have attacked me. Such was the patience that we find with Jnanis, because there is neither Ahankara nor Mamahara in them. When we were small, we have learnt the story about father and the candle stand. A thief would steal a silver candle stand from a church. As it was very big, he could not hide and walk. On the way, policemen would see him carrying the big silver candle stand, and they could easily guess that it belongs to the church. So they took him to the church and produced him before father. Instead of scolding him, what father did was, he said, oh my son, I gave you 2 candles, isn't it? But you took only one. Come on, take the other one also. Policeman got puzzled. This was the forgiveness that the father had towards that thief, and that is because of the absence of Mamahara. This is because of the absence of Mamahara, and when there is no Mamahara, automatically patience, forgiveness, tolerance comes in. When I don't consider anything as mine, why should I bother when I lose it or somebody takes it away from me? We may ask, we are living in this world surrounded by many people. Is it possible for us to live like Bhagwan with a single langota? Not necessary. We can use whatever we need, but without having any attachment towards it. Because if it is go out of my hand, it is not going to bring, it's going to bring sorrow only. Why I am telling you this, you know, we are living in such a materialistic world. People love materials and use human beings to accumulate those materials. I'll tell you a small incident which is really happened. One day, a father and the son was washing their car, newly bought car. On the one side, father was washing, and on the other side, the son, and he was around 4 years old. He was, instead of washing, was scratching something. On seeing this, father could not bear it because it's a new car. He got annoyed. He is so attached to that material. He slapped his son so hardly that he was to be admitted in the hospital and take treatment. Doctor said, we can tell anything only after 24 hours. The father cried, prayed to God with tears flowing from his eyes. Oh Almighty, please save my son. Of course, his prayers was heard and his son was recovered. After coming home only, he turned towards his car and saw his son scribbling in the car. And it was written, I love my daddy. Then only he realized his son actually taught him a very great lesson. So, when one is free from the clutches of Mamahara, one is free from short-temperedness. Anger-free person can think clearly and act. When the thought of mind is thrown off, there is one karuna which enters automatically. That's why Bhagavan says, Mamadai Indri Karunai Manni. Our heart will be full of karuna. We will be ready to part with anything to anyone. Bhagavan, without giving Upadesam, many times he has taught us by his action how to live with karuna. Once, a beautiful shawl was presented to Bhagavan by Baroda king. Jayanti celebration was over and all were actually tired. Normally Jayanti will come in the month of December, isn't it? So it used to be a bit cold in the night. On that Jayanti night, a devotee, after doing lot of work, got tired and was sleeping in the ashram corridor without any bedsheet to cover himself. And he was shivering. Seeing this, what Bhagavan did was, he went inside and took the shawl given by Baroda king and covered the devotee with the shawl. After that, the devotee slept calmly. When he got up in the morning, he saw that he was covered with a costly shawl. He started weeping. Oh, what's happening? Bhagavan has given me this shawl. He immediately went to Chinnaswami Sarvadikari and told what happened. And he said, I am going to give this back to Bhagavan. But what Chinnaswami said was, don't worry, you are actually blessed by Bhagavan. Please take this home as Bhagavan's prasadam. Bhagavan, and do puja. The devotee felt so happy, and till his death he preserved it and did puja. How can this be possible in the absence of Mamahara only? And in its place, Karuna will blossom. That's why it said, Mamadai Indri Karunai Manni. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana, prostrations to Ramana, shining as the self in all beings. By the immense grace of that self manifest as Ramana, we are dwelling on the Ramana Ashtottara composed by Vishwanatha Swami on Bhagavan. And this is a litany of 108 names. We have dwelt on the Dhyana Shloka, where Vishwanatha Swami tells us that Bhagavan is the Apara Satchit Sukhavari Rashe. He is that infinite, limitless, boundless ocean of existence, consciousness, bliss. And after understanding that he is this, then we come to the names. So that each and every name, each and every nama is known to us as that very self-same, unmanifest, infinite bliss. And so, looking at that infinite bliss as the Mahasena, that bliss is born, that consciousness is born as the Shakti of Subramaniam. What is that Shakti? He first refers to it as Mahasena because of the
atmosphere of being a victor. He refers to him as the symbol of victory, of Jaya, of being triumphant. So Bhagavan, he tells us, is the harbinger of triumph, of true victory in our lives. No matter what we take up by His grace, what we are allowed to take up by His grace, surely when He allows us to take up something, there will be victory in that, because it is guided by Mahasena. Victory means victory of the good, victory of that which is auspicious. Not necessarily victory in the way we may perceive it in that particular situation. Sometimes, whether it is in our day-to-day lives, in our tasks, in the jobs that we take up, in the projects, we may not perceive victory. We may not reach a point which to us is a point of success. But since it is guided by that all-knowing supreme force, in whom Yasyor Mimatram Bhuvanam Samastam, in whom the entire universe is just a mere speck, and as it is contained in Him, as it is in Him, since it is guided entirely by Him, everything is as per His plan victorious. Mahasena Mahumshena Jataha, and who is He known to us as Sri Ramana, the dear one, as the one who is dear to all. Ramana Guruhu. Here, Vishwanatha Swami, by using the word Guru, points out to us the main purpose of the advent of Bhagavan. It is to be the Guru. He is to be the teacher. He is the world teacher. Sadhu Om Swami, in one of his compositions, he says, Loka Mahaguru, Loka Mahaguru, Lokeshwarane Ramanesha. The Lokeshwara, the Lord of the universe, has become manifest as the teacher of the world. In this context, I recall a conversation with Chandrasekhara Bharati Mahaswami of Sringeri, when he was asked, how is it that you call yourself a Jagat Guru? Are you proclaiming that you are the teacher of the world? He says, when we say that we are Jagat Guru, it means we are available to the Jagat. Everyone, everything in the universe can approach us for the knowledge of the self, Jagat Guru. So that is how he is Loka Mahaguru. He is available to all. And we see the Guru Tattva being manifest in Bhagavan's life so immensely that whether it is Cow Lakshmi or Jackie the dog or Valli the deer, we find samadhis for all of these devotees of Bhagavan whom he has guided. So he is the Guru, Ramano Guruhu, Akhanda Samvidakara. He is the unbroken consciousness. He is the form of the unbroken consciousness. We saw how everyone has experienced him as that fullness of consciousness throbbing his I all the time. Mahaujaha, Mahaujasaha. And he came as the great light. He is the light. He is the supreme light of the self, which lights everything, which lights the darkness also, which lights the ignorance also. And since he is that light that is always auspicious, that is always victorious, it can never be destroyed. So he is that light of the self, which the great ones, the great gods saw as Arunachala. That light has come to us as Ramana, the immense light of the self, Mahaujasaha. Karanodbhavahu, that light, that infinite light of the self has decided to come into this earth, to become manifest for a specific reason. What is that reason? Karanodbhavaha Jagathitavataraha. It is for the welfare of the world. It is for the welfare of that which is manifest that he has come. It is the welfare of every one of us that Bhagavan has come into this life of arts, into this manifest universe. Karanodbhavaha Jagathitavataraha. And where did he take birth? He was born in Bhuminatha Kshetra, Bhuminatha Sthalottitaha. He was born in Bhuminatha Kshetra, which he himself has described as the dance, the joyous dance of I. Inbudai Nattamidal Yenaverum Edit Chudiyal. That is Chudiyal. Where is it dancing? Where is Bhuminatha Sthala? Tiruchuri is the dance in the hearts of all those who have love for him, says Bhagavan. Anbudayartham aham ahalamal. It never, this blissful dance never leaves us. Ahalamal anavaradam inbudai nattamidal enavendrum yadir churiyar. That is the Tiruchuri. That is Bhuminatha Kshetra. This Bhumi is this body. And the Lord is the dance of the self within us. And that self has become manifest in that very place, in that very Bhumi. And by coming in the Bhuminatha Kshetra, Bhagavan affirms to us that he is going to shine forth in every Bhumi, in every embodied being. He is going to manifest, reveal himself. The unmanifest, he is going to reveal himself as that dance of bliss. That's why he has chosen that place to become manifest. Wherever he becomes manifest, there is a special purpose to the place. And the lineage which he chose is the Parashara Kula, which is the lineage of the sage Vashishta, who is the guru to Sri Rama, who has given the Upadesha of Yoga Vashishta, and Parashara Muni himself has given the secrets of the Agni, the worship of Agni, the mantras of Agni, because Arunachala is the Agni Tattva, it is the Tejolinga, and coming in that lineage, Bhagavan, our Bhagavan Ramana, is to give us, he gives us the secret of Arunachala. What is the secret of Arunachala? The secret of Arunachala is Idu Bhumiyin Idayam. Idu Oru Marumattalam. It is a secret space. There is a secret of Arunachala which Bhagavan reveals to us and says, therefore, after revealing, Velivitteen Unchayal Vertidadu Unnarul Velivittu Ennai Ka Arunachala, protect me, take care of me, although I have revealed your secret. And to reveal the secret, he came in the lineage of Parashara Muni, and as whose son did he come? Sundararya Tapah Phalaya Namaha. Recently, on the 3rd of March, the Sundaram Iyer Day was celebrated by Sri Ramana Ashramam. Sundararya Tapah Phalaha. He is the fruit of the penance of Sundaram Iyer. Sundararya Tapaha. Unless Sundararya has done such great penance, how could Ramana be born as his son? Is what Vishwanatha Swami is asking us indirectly. And by telling us this, he is also pointing out to the glory of the father. What a father! What tapasya he has done, that the fruit of that tapasya is the supreme one, that apara satchit sukhavari itself. Yasyor vimatram bhuvanam, the whole earth is, the whole universe is but a speck in him, and he has become manifest as the son of Sundararya, what a great tapasvi, what tapas must he have done. Normally, the great poets sing of the tapas of the mother. Yenna tavam seidane Yashoda, for the Lord to be born as your child. What tapas did you do, O Yashoda? Like this, the great ones sing. We have heard of Kausalya's tapas to bear Sri Rama as her child. We have heard of Devaki's tapas. Here, Vishwanatha Swami is pointing out the glory of the father, Sundaramayar, and his tapas. That tapas, what was that tapas? The tapas of being ever in dharma. The dharmika Sundaramayar, the one who could be said to be the very embodiment of righteousness of dharma. And the beauty of Sundaramayya's life is that his adherence to dharma, his practice of all the goodness was so natural to him that he himself was not conscious. It was not a vrata. It was not a vow that I must tell the truth, I must be good to people, I must be this way or that way. Even to hold such a vrata is very, very difficult, and it is greatly blessed. We have known of Bhishma when he took the vrata of Naishtika Brahmacharya, how he was blessed by the entire gods, by all the beings for that vrata that he took up. But here we find in Sundaramayya's life that his righteousness is not even a vrata. He has no consciousness of following. His greatness is so much, his goodness is so much that he is not even conscious of his own goodness. This we see through an incident, small incident, when the Raja of that place, the Raja of Ramnad, had come to visit and look into the temple affairs of Bhuminatheshwara temple to see to its renovation. And many people were coming, meeting him. He was camping in Tiruchuri. But after a week, he sent word to Sundaramayar, why has Sundaramayar not come to see me? And he asked Sundaramayar, are you upset with me for something? Why didn't you come to see me? Everyone says that Sundaramayar alone is the one who can take care of this entire project. And you have not come to see me. Then Sundaramayar says, no, I did not think I was a man great enough to have any work with the king of Ramnad. That is his natural humility. That is his natural state of simplicity. And such tapasya, to him, Bhagavan Ramana was born, says Vishwanatha Swami. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramana. We are talking about Sundaramayar, Bhagavan's father. But for us, Bhagavan himself is the father. And this father has given us a wonderful work to meditate on. That is the Aksharamanamalai. This prasada will be presenting a few verses of Aksharamanamalai by Srimati V. Radha.
Namo Ramana. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. கோபமில் குணத்தோய் குறியாய் என்னை கொள்ள கூரையன் செய்தேன் அருணாச்சலாம். கௌதமர் போற்றும் கருணை மாமலையே கடை கணித்தாழ்வாய் அருணாச்சலா. சகலமும் விழுங்கும் கதிரொளி நமன ஜலஜமலர்த்தீட அருணாச்சலாம். சாப்பாடுன்னை சாதுணவாயான் சாந்தமாய் போவன் அருணாச்சலாம். சித்தம் குளிர கதிரத் தம் வைத்தாம் உதவையை திரையருள்மதி அருணாச்சலம் சீரை அழித்து நிர்வாணம செய்தருள் சீரை அழித்தருள் அருணாச்சலம் சுக கடல் பொங்க சொல்லுணர்வடங்க சும்மா பொருந்திடங்க அருணாச்சலம் சூது செய்தென்னை சோதியினி உன் ஜோதி ஒரு காட்டருணாச்சலம் செப்படி வித்தை கற்றிப்படி மயக்கு விட்டுருபடு வித்தை காட்டருணாச்சலம் சேராயனிமை நீராயுருகி கண்ணீராற்றழிவேன் அருணாச்சலம் செய்யன தள்ளீர் செய்வினை சுடுமலர் உய்வகையே துரை அருணாச்சலா சொல்லாது சொல்லி நீ சொல்லரனில் என்று சும்மா இருந்தாய் அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சல சிவ 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 அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சல சிவ அருணாச்சலா அருணாச்சலம் வாழி அன்பர்களும் வாழி அக்ஷரமணமாலை வாழி.
Namo Ramana. We will conclude today's satsang with the Ashtottara Puja by Vaibhavji and Prarthana, in the second half by Uma and Ashwini. We will conclude with the Arathi at Sri Subramaniam Sir's altar. Arathi song sung by Revati Shankar.
नमो रमणा. भारद्वाज विश्वनाथ विरचितं श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तर शतनामावलिः अपार सच्चित् सुखवारिणाशे यस्योमि मातरं भुवनं समस्तं गुहाहितं तं रमणं गभीरं चिन्ताविहीनं हृदि चिन्तयामि. ॐ महासेन महंसेन जाताय नमः. ॐ श्रीरमणाय नमः. ॐ गुरवे नमः. ॐ अखण्डसंविदाकाराय नमः. ॐ महौजसे नमः. ॐ कारणोद्भवाय नमः. ॐ जगद्विदावताराय नमः. ॐ श्रीभूमिनाथस्थलोस्थिताय नमः. ॐ पराशरकुलोत्तंसाय नमः. ॐ सुन्दराय तपःफलाय नमः. ॐ कमनीयसुचारित्राय नमः. ॐ सहायाम्बा सहायवते नमः. ॐ शोणाचलमहोनीनमानसाय नमः. ॐ स्वर्णहस्तकाय नमः. ॐ श्रीमद्द्वादशान्तमहास्थले लब्धविद्योदयाय नमः. ॐ महाशक्तिनिपातेन प्रबुद्धाय नमः. ॐ परमार्थविदे नमः. ॐ तीव्राय नमः. ॐ पितृपदान्वेषिणे नमः. ॐ इन्दुमौलिना पितृमते नमः. ॐ पितुरादेशत शोणशैलं प्राप्ताय नमः. ॐ तपोमयाय नमः. ॐ उदासीनाय नमः. ॐ महायोगिने नमः. ॐ महोत्साहाय नमः. ॐ कुशाग्रधिये नमः. ॐ शान्तसङ्कल्पसंरम्भाय नमः. ॐ सुसन्दृशे नमः. ॐ सवित्रे नमः. ॐ स्थिराय नमः. ॐ तपक्षपितसर्वाङ्गाय नमः ॐ पुल्लाम्बुजविलोचनाय नमः ॐ चन्द्रिकासितहासश्रीमण्डिताननमण्डलाय नमः ॐ चूतवाट्यां समासीनाय नमः ॐ चूडिकाखिलविभ्रमाय नमः ॐ वेदवेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञाय नमः ॐ चिन्मुद्रिणे नमः ॐ त्रिगुणातीताय नमः ॐ विरूपाक्षगुहावासाय नमः ॐ विराजविचलाकृतये नमः ॐ पूर्वीतनयनाय नमः ॐ पूर्णाय नमः ॐ लचिताचलताण्डवाय नमः ॐ गम्भीराय नमः ॐ परमाचार्याय नमः ॐ सुप्रसन्नाय नमः ॐ अभयप्रदाय नमः ॐ दक्षिणास्य निभाय नमः ॐ धीराय नमः ॐ दक्षिणाभिमुखाय नमः ॐ स्वराजे नमः ॐ महर्षये नमः ॐ भगवते नमः ॐ ईड्याय नमः
ॐ भूमविद्याविशारदाय नमः ॐ विमलाय नमः ॐ दीर्घदर्शिने नमः ॐ आप्ताय नमः ॐ ऋजुमार्गप्रदर्शकाय नमः ॐ समदृशे नमः ॐ सत्यदृशे नमः ॐ सत्याय नमः ॐ प्रशान्ताय नमः ॐ अमितविक्रमाय नमः ॐ सुकुमाराय नमः ॐ सदानन्दाय नमः ॐ मृदुभाषिणे नमः ॐ दयार्णवाय नमः ॐ श्री षोडाचलहृद्भूतस्कन्दाश्रमनिकेतनाय नमः ॐ सद्दर्शनोपदेष्ट्रे नमः ॐ सद्भक्तवृन्दपरिवृताय नमः ॐ गणेशमुनिभृङ्गेन सेविताङ्घ्रिसरोरुहाय नमः ॐ गीतोपदेशसारादिग्रन्थसञ्चिन्न संशयाय नमः ॐ वर्णाश्रममतातीताय नमः ॐ रसज्ञाय नमः ॐ सौम्याय नमः ॐ आत्मवते नमः ॐ सर्वावनिमतस्थानाम् आराध्याय नमः ॐ सर्वसद्गुणिने नमः ॐ आत्मारामाय नमः ॐ महाभागाय नमः ॐ मातृमुक्तिविधायकाय नमः ॐ विनताय नमः ॐ विनुताय नमः ॐ विप्राय नमः ॐ मुनीन्द्राय नमः ॐ पावकोज्ज्वलाय नमः ॐ दर्शनादगसंहारिणे नमः ॐ मौनेन स्वात्मबोधकाय नमः ॐ हृच्चान्धिकरसान्निध्याय नमः ॐ स्मरणात्मन्दमोचकाय नमः ॐ अन्तस्तिमिरचण्डांशवे नमः ॐ संसारार्णवतारकाय नमः ॐ शोणाद्रीशस्तुतिद्रष्टे नमः ॐ हार्दविद्याप्रकाशकाय नमः ॐ अविच्युतनिजप्रज्ञाय नमः ॐ नैसर्गिकमहातपसे नमः ॐ कमण्डलुधराय नमः ॐ शुभ्रकौपीनवसनाय नमः ॐ गुहाय नमः ॐ दण्डपाणये नमः ॐ कृपापूर्णाय नमः ॐ भवरोगभिषग्वराय नमः ॐ स्कन्दाय नमः ॐ देवतमाय नमः ॐ अमर्त्याय नमः ॐ सेनान्ये नमः ॐ पुरुषोत्तमाय नमः।
ॐ श्रीरमण भगवते नमः। श्रीरमणाष्टोत्तरशतनामपूजां समर्पयामि। यस्थाणोररुणाचलस्य पदयोः स्मृत्या जनिं प्राप्यत दिव्यानुग्रहसुप्रवाहविवशस्तादात्म्यभावं गतः हृन्निष्ठस्वगभीरनित्यतपसा लोकान् पुनास्येकराट् तस्मै श्रीरमणाय ते नम इदं लोकोत्तरज्योतिषे। नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि दर्शन सुख मंगल मुख सकल जीवहित सम्मुख ब्रह्म संघिये नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट सदा तुष्ट सदा हृष्ट सदा शिवानन्दपुष्ट परममहर्षि परममहर्षि ब्रह्मनिष्ठ समदर्शी नमो 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 रमण सदाशिव प्रभावरण नमो महर्षि नमो महर्षि ನಮ್ಮ ಮನವದೊಂದು ಕಾಡು ನೀನರಿತಿಹೆ ಅದರ ಜಾಡು ಹಿತವನರಿತು ನೀಡುತ್ತೆಮ್ಮ ಕೊರೆಯ ತಣಿಸಲೈ ಬೇಡಲೆಂದು ಬಂದ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿಯೇ ತಣಿವೆವಯ್ಯ ಮೋಡಿಗಾರನೇ ಹಿತವ ನುಡಿದು ಪೊರೆ ನಮ್ಮನು ಬ್ರಹ್ಮ ಸಂಘಿಯೇ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ 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 ರಮಣ ಸದಾಶಿವ ಪ್ರಭಾವರಣ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ ನಮೋ ಮಹರ್ಷಿ। बोलो भगवान श्री रमण महर्षि की जय।